got Dana Loesch from Big Journalism, CNN, all sorts of things. Too many to mention. So here's Dana.
Woo! I'll write your check for you later. I also like the Q&A portion of that too, so I'm going to try to keep that in mind here. I do come from a talk radio background. When I hear the term new media, I think I envision something a little bit different. I think of the new Minutemen. When I think of new media, I think of the new Minutemen, because we live in a world right now where the simple act of telling the truth is apparently activism. Seems a little odd to me. We are in a world where the old guard media, the media that we grew up with, the newspapers that were delivered to your door, or a particular morning show that your parents would listen to as you got ready in the morning, the old guard used to be the watchdog for the people. That's what media was supposed to be. That's why we have a new media, because they haven't been doing their job. They've turned into the lapdog for the government. And so now it's become really a citizens movement, and citizens are reclaiming it. They've been dissatisfied, they're frustrated, and all of this. I think that there's two different types of entities when you discuss new media. I think you have the new media activist, and I think that you have the citizen journalist. And together, these two informational entities work together to perpetuate the truth that more people than not in the mainstream media don't like to report on. And there's a lot of examples that I can give you, and I just kind of want to give you just the top three. Being that I come from St. Louis. St. Louis, we're famous for our toasted ravioli. We're famous for the Arch. We're also famous for a man named Kenneth Gladney. This is a guy, and I was at this town hall where Kenneth Gladney was at. This is a gentleman who was racially profiled by people who were bussed in to go to a healthcare town hall, a town hall that wasn't in these people's area. He was beaten on camera by a bunch of folks who just all happened to be wearing purple shirts that day, just by coincidence. And nobody would know who Kenneth Gladney is had it not been for a blogger whose name is Patch. And he runs a blog called PO'd Patriot. He just happened to be there with his flip cam. He's a Tea Party guy. He happened to see some stuff going down in the parking lot, and he went there and he pressed the record button, and he caught this guy, Kenneth Gladney, he's a leukemia survivor. I think I weigh more than Gladney does. Caught him getting kicked around and beaten up in the parking lot. Nobody would have known had he not got it on video. And he tried to get mainstream media in St. Louis interested in what he had caught. Look, do you see what I see? I see guys wearing SEIU shirts kicking down a guy that they racially profiled as a black conservative. Nobody, by the way, nobody to this day knows what his politics are. And I frankly don't care what his politics are, because when I see somebody getting kicked around in the parking lot, the first thing I'm not going to ask is, are you a Republican or a Democrat? He tried getting the affiliates interested in this videotape. He tried saying, do you guys see what's happening? Nobody was biting. Nobody paid any attention to it. There was one reporter that had been there with the big daily paper, and he wrote more about himself getting arrested than what he actually saw. So there you go. It ended up, what happened with this video of Kenneth Gladney, it made it to Breitbart TV, and from there it went viral. Nobody would have known about it had it not gone on Breitbart TV. It just, because no one was paying attention to it. Another example I can give is James O'Keefe and Hannah Giles with the Acorn situation. And I know they took a lot of heat from people over the Acorn video, but I look at it now. Here you have a huge organization that for so long masqueraded around as some kind of community savior, while they were sucking the life out of the communities that they were representing themselves to help. They hadn't done anything for anyone, except in St. Louis, here we had 8 counts of voter fraud. 8 individuals with the Acorn organization pled guilty to voter fraud in St. Louis. And because of the work that James and Hannah did, these are 2 citizen journalists. These are college kids that decided, you know what, I'm going to take my flip cam, I'm going to take a video camera, and I'm going to go into this office, and I'm just going to do what NBC Datelines To Catch a Predator has been doing, except with a different kind of predator. a predatory government agency. That's what we're going to do, because they get taxpayer money and they're thick and thin with this administration, so let's call them what it is. There's also the story of Loesch. Now, I don't know if you guys, a lot of you, if you had attended the press conference that we had with Andrew Breitbart earlier today, if you've been following this story at all on big journalism or big government, this is really one of the biggest scandals of our generation, this Pigford case. How many people are familiar with this case? For those who aren't, go to biggovernment.com, and right up top there's a link that says Pigford Resources. This wasn't done by 60 Minutes. This wasn't done by NBC. These were done by an individual who decided, you know what, Loesch decided to go with his family and take a tour of the Southern Belt and actually interview the original farmers in the Pigford case who were discriminated against by the USDA and saw the offense against them doubled down upon by this administration when they decided to exploit the travesty that happened to them to buy votes. Because that's what it's about. And it's with your cash money, by the way. Loesch, it's great citizen journalism that you're not seeing anywhere else. And if you think about it, it's the aesthetic of the new media activist that helps get this story out there, and the citizen journalist that is unafraid to take their camera. You don't need a big camera crew. You don't need a big light. You just need the initiative to go out there and get this story yourself, because I tell you something, no one else is going to do it. You have to. And then, of course, this is a story that's kind of close to my heart because of the issue at hand, is the Planned Parenthood story and Lila Rose. Now, are you all familiar with the Planned Parenthood tapes that have been released and the work that Lila Rose has done? This is the third time that this girl has done this, by the way. The third investigative series into Planned Parenthood. And I need to make the observation, too. At what point are people going to start becoming suspicious of pimps? If a pimp comes up into your office, you don't try to help them. You don't try to work with them. Well, let's see, how can we help your underage sex slaves? It's amazing what Lila Rose has done, and she's been absolutely fearless, and she's taken so much heat from people. She's taken so much heat from the left, and I'm going to take a little bit of, just go off topic for just 1 second here. She's taken a lot of heat, too, from these feminist messiahs who make their living advocating for women while also fighting for female genocide. These feminist messiahs, or however you say her name. It's infuriating. These are women they talk about being independent and self-sustaining and empowered, but you're not empowered when you're expecting Uncle Sam to act like your sugar daddy and take care of your abortions and take care of your birth control and pay your bills and everything else. That's not empowerment. What empowerment is what Lila Rose has done. And the fact that you had a huge group of white middle-aged men paid by George Soros that had to stage a conference call to figure out what to do with a college-age girl, that is empowerment. They are the new minutemen, these individuals, and there are a lot more of them. It's not journalism if both sides aren't represented in a story. That's called propaganda. And it seems that this term has been absolutely bastardized. And one of the things that I see coming from new media activism is attention to this detail, fighting for this narrative. It's not always just about turning out stuff for candidates with new media activism. It's also about fighting for control of a narrative. And grassroots are increasing. I don't know what happened to all the progressives that were online during the Howard Dean and Barack Obama days. I guess their allegiance to reporting died after their guy got elected. Because now we have conservative blogs. I saw a statistic not too long ago where there was something like several conservative blogs created every second or something insane, which is awesome. Now the left is playing catch up. And they're all saying, oh, well, the recent acquisition of the Huffington Post by AOL. Ooh, they're going to be doing great things for social media. Woo-hoo! I heard this, and I looked at my husband, and I said, people besides my grandparents still pay attention to AOL? Is there something to be excited about? New media isn't just breaking the bigger stories. Well, they are breaking the bigger stories, but it's also a megaphone for liberty is what it's become. A lot of people use it for organization. As a co-founder of St. Louis Tea Party, in addition to everything else I've done, which we actually founded when I was on air. I was broadcasting live, and it was just insane when it happened. It's used for organization. Look at Egypt. Look at Iran. No one knew what was happening in Iran until we started getting things from Twitter, and we started hearing little trickles from bloggers after they tried to shut the internet down. And Twitter was actually going to go offline and do a huge maintenance. They were going to do a huge update, and they didn't. They stayed online so that they could help the Iranian people organize and get people together in the streets. That's some of the good things that new media has done. I mean, when your lifeline is simplified down to how the sustaining ability of your jacked up internet connection, your dial-up connection over there. I mean, that's I think what really, when you talk about freedom of the press, and you talk about the new penny press and all of this stuff, which I think is what new media has become. This is what Benjamin Franklin envisioned. This is what has aided to sustain the Tea Party movement. And before that, everybody remembers the Don't Go movement. That preceded. That came before the Tea Party movement. You remember the Don't Go movement. That's when there was this huge energy debate, when super hot 2008 summer, the huge energy debate in the House of Representatives. And Nancy Pelosi turns off the C-SPAN cameras. Democrats are saying, we're done, we're going to go back to our houses, we're going to go on vacation. And a select group of conservative Republicans said, no. We're here to do the people's business, and we're going to stay until we get it done. They were escorted out by Capitol Police, and nobody knew what was happening until folks like John Culberson got online and started live streaming being escorted out by Capitol Police on Kick. That started before the Tea Party movement. That gave momentum for the Tea Party movement to blow up online. That's why congressional Democrats want to control it. That's why you have things like the ridiculous net neutrality, and I just cannot believe that the same people who sit here and talk about free speech and free market and all of that stuff could actually sell their soul and get behind the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. Citizen journalist, new media activist, they just want to restore the respect that certain corporatized Leni Riefenstahl type characters have desecrated over the past several years. They want to save the time and the footwork, and they want to reach thousands of people instantaneously. And that's what you can do. I would go into a whole big thing here about Didi Skozafava, which I'm going to save because that's another one close to my heart, because that was a scout from new media, and that was a message to the GOP. But the new Minutemen, I'm going to close with this. You know, I mentioned these examples, these new Minutemen individuals. A very good friend of mine, two good friends of mine, Darren, who does a website called Reboot Congress, and a photographer friend of ours, Robert Brenner. Robert took a photo at an April 19th Tax Day Tea Party 2009 in St. Louis. And he had a photo of a woman, she had a big old long stick. Tied to the end of that stick was a Gadsden flag. It was propped up on her shoulder. On her wrist was a flip cam. And in her other hand was a still camera. And the caption that Robert gave this photo was the new Minuteman. I think that's a pretty accurate description. Why is it so important? Why is having this awareness and this vigilance in new media so important? Because the headlines that you see on your newspapers today, that's going to be the history of tomorrow. So you're fighting for more than just headlines and narratives. You are actually fighting to make sure that when the history books are written for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, that they reflect the truth. And that is why we're here, and that's what it's about. Thank you.